So President Trump did a rally the other day, and I feel like it's true. His rallies are getting like more and more extreme with a lot of the comments that he's making and how hard he's leaning into the stolen election stuff. There was a time when he more shied away from it. He still believed it, but he shied away from it and didn't talk about it too much. He was still trying to appeal to normies to one extent or another. He's now given up on appealing to normies, which actually is Trump's one major Achilles heel here, is that even for 2024, even though he's the favorite in my opinion, he's so deep in that right-wing bubble. He's such a Fox News grandpa, and now he's catering so hard to the base, to the fringe, that he's losing touch with the normies. And even with Biden doing a terrible job as president and his numbers being low, if Trump keeps going down this path, there are consequences to it, man, and he won't win again if that's the case. So let me go ahead and show you this article here from The Hill. Former President Trump on Saturday warned of the biggest protest we have ever had in the United States if prosecutors do anything illegal in their investigations into him and his businesses. Speaking at a rally in Conroe, Texas on Saturday, Trump spoke about the local and federal probes targeting his businesses and political activities, including lawmakers investigating the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the Capitol. Quote, "If these radical, vicious, racist prosecutors do anything wrong or illegal, I hope we are going to have in this country the biggest protest we've ever had in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Atlanta, and elsewhere, because our country and our elections are corrupt," Trump told the crowd of his supporters. Trump accused New York Attorney General Letitia James of launching a political attack against him. James claimed in a court filing last week that her office discovered evidence of Trump's company using fraudulent or misleading valuations of its golf clubs, skyscrapers, and other property to secure loans and tax benefits. His mention of Atlanta apparently refers to an investigation being led by Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis into whether Trump and others acted criminally when trying to pressure Georgia officials into overturning President Biden's win in the 2020 election. Okay, so here's what's happening, guys. I've maintained all along. Now, remember, I was a very staunch critic of Russiagate, and looking back at that, I'm actually proud that I stuck to my guns the entire time because I was right. Nothing came of it. Trump was not Vladimir Putin's puppet. If anything, he was too hawkish, and he armed, neo-Nazi Ukrainian rebels right on Russia's border in Ukraine. He rejected the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So his policies were hawkish, even though he was being accused of being a puppet of Vladimir Putin. I said, this doesn't make any sense. And none of the claims really had any evidence. Where I told you there was always evidence is that Trump has been a businessman for decades. And without a doubt, he had dealings with the mafia. I mean, if you're in real estate in New York in the 1980s, you have to have mob connections. And in fact, one of his lawyers, was it Roy Cohn, I think his name is? He was the top lawyer for a lot of the crime families. So I have no doubt Trump had mafia connections, but beyond the mafia connections, because maybe it's, we're too far after the fact, it's hard to collect evidence, you can't prove that, and what exactly you're going to take him down for, whatever, all that stuff is fair. But what we know for sure is Trump's committed fraud a number of times. He did it with Trump University, calling his non-university a university as if that's legally allowed. It's not allowed. He's not accredited, nothing of that nature. He did classic upselling techniques in there. So he's just committing fraud, and he had to pay out millions as a result of that. So that's one example. Other examples are money laundering that he's almost certainly been involved in. There was something going on with his, I think, Panama Hotel is one thing that we discussed previously on the show. What they're talking about with his taxes is maybe the biggest issue. There was a big report on this in the New York Times that was very detailed, that laid out exactly how not only Trump massively cheated on his taxes, but also when he inherited money from his father and his siblings did as well, the loopholes that they used in order to dodge taxes. And so now I'm sure they had great lawyers and tax experts, so maybe a lot of what they did was legal, but some of the things are definitely not legal. Like what he would do is he would undervalue his properties when paying taxes. He would say it's worth way less than it is, maybe 50% less or even 70% less than what it is. And then at other times, when he's trying to count it towards his net worth or is trying to sell a certain property, he would massively jack it up. And so there were all these little things that he did that are pretty clearly illegal. So now you have Letitia James, who, by the way, also took down Andrew Cuomo, who's now going after Trump. And Trump saying, look, I'm going to use the power I have, which is my people. And so he's out there saying, if anything happens with any of these cases, if they bring me down, if they're able to, well, now we got to storm the streets. So he's willing to use that power, willing to use his people, willing to use the bully pulpit, willing to threaten social unrest. For what? For his own personal gain. This has nothing to do with substantive policy. He's not asking people to go protest for universal health care or ending the wars. No, he's saying if they come after me with things I actually did that I am guilty of, well, you guys better get out there in the streets. It could get ugly, man. It could get real ugly because guess what? He did commit a lot of standard business crimes. He absolutely did. And he might get caught for them because this is the same person who brought down Andrew Cuomo. So he's threatening another January 6th type thing, not, more so to just protect his ass from going to prison and his family's ass from going to prison. There was another report that he told somebody close to him, you better make sure if anybody goes to jail, it's not Ivanka, and it would be Don Jr. That's kind of hilarious, by the way. Now, the other thing is in this same speech, he said, we need to pardon January 6th rioters. So now he's openly talking about pardoning some of the people who committed straight up crimes that day. People who may have broken windows going into the Capitol or were armed inside or whatever. There were a number of crimes that were committed. I think hundreds of people have been charged. And he's saying, look, they've been treated very unfairly. Hey, maybe what we should do is pardon them. So I told you he's getting more and more extreme as the days go by. And I actually have, let me read you this because this just came out last night as well. So Trump released a statement. Again, you want to talk about getting too fringe and too extreme and losing normies? Trump released this statement. If the vice president, Mike Pence, had, quote, absolutely no right to change the presidential election results in the Senate despite fraud and many other irregularities, how come the Democrats and the Rhino Republicans, like wacky Susan Collins, are desperately trying to pass legislation that will not allow the vice president to change the results of the election? Actually, what they're saying is that Mike Pence did have the right to change the outcome, and they now want to take that right away. Unfortunately, he didn't exercise that power. He could have overturned the election. So here's Trump just openly saying, yeah, we should have done the coup. We should have overturned the results of a democratic election that we know, provably, demonstrably, verifiably, has the accurate outcome. Over 60 court cases, Trump lost virtually every single one of them. The Arizona audit, which they thought, oh, this will prove Trump definitely won, not only had Biden win, it had Biden win by more than we originally thought. And Trump's just saying, Mike Pence should have overturned the election and I should still be in office. See, as he's out of office, he's getting more and more deranged, more and more out of touch. He doesn't have any of that pseudo-populist instinct that he had in 2016 when he ran. And now he's just total Fox News grandpa and almost like my pillow dude acolyte now. Just nothing but personal grievance and I'm persecuted, I'm a victim, and you should have stolen the election from me. We should have done a coup. And so, look, if there's any hope, any saving grace for the Democrats at a time when they're polling horrendously and they're doing a shitty job governing, it's that this guy is becoming so extreme that he's alienating every single normie from his pack. So you want to talk about a true race to the bottom? We got Democrats doing absolutely Dickie McGee's acts to help people right now. Totally pathetic and ineffectual and useless. And you got Trump, who is now the living, walking, breathing embodiment of One America News Network and of Newsmax and My Pillow energy. So it's ugly, man. But this is a former president of the U.S. saying we should have done a coup. Openly saying that. Openly saying you better storm the streets if people come after me for crimes I actually committed. So buckle up. It's going to get ugly. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.